Welcome to the Unlocked Podcast, a podcast where we decode human performance one gene at a time. I'm Tony, and this series isn't just about science. It's about unlocking the hidden power you carry in your biology so you can train smarter, live longer, and activate what most people think is fixed. We're going to talk about genes, healing, mental clarity, recovery, and even where science and soul start to meet. But we're starting with the foundation because most people don't know what DNA really is or how much control they actually have. Welcome back. In episode 1, we lay the foundation. DNA is the instruction manual, but gene expression is what decides what gets used. Episode 2 is where we take that idea and put it into something you can actually feel in real life. Today, we're talking about BDNF because it's one of the clearest examples of how training, recovery, and environment shape how your biology adapts over time. BDNF stands for Brain Derived Neurotrophic Factor. In plain language, it's a growth and support signal that helps neurons survive, adapt, and strengthen their connections. It matters for learning, it matters for mood, and it matters for performance because your nervous system is a huge part of results. Getting stronger is not only about building tissue, it's also about how well your brain learns to recruit muscle, coordinate movement, and repeat quality output consistently. Here's a little context from the research history because the origin story is honestly the part most people never hear. BDNF wasn't discovered because scientists were chasing athletic performance. It sits downstream of an older question that haunted neuroscience for decades. Why do some neurons survive while others fade or die off? Back then, the brain was often treated like fixed wiring. You get what you get, and when it breaks, it breaks. Researchers like Rita Levi-Montalcini helped change the entire storyline by pushing forward work that helped lead to the discovery of nerve growth factor, NGF. NGF is a protein that supports the survival and growth of certain neurons. It was one of the first big clues that brain cells are biologically supported, not just electrically active. That discovery opened the door to a whole new family of molecules, neurotrophins. Neurotrophins are the proteins that act like support signals for neurons, helping them survive, grow, and adapt when the system is under demand. BDNF is a part of that same family. Now here's the nerd detail that gives people a real sense of scale. BDNF was purified from pig brain in the early 1980s and the amount was tiny. Purified means isolated from tissue in a lab, so scientists can study one signal at a time. In the original purification work, roughly 1 microgram of the factor was isolated from about 1.5 kilograms of brain tissue. A microgram is 1/1,000,000th of a gram. So we're talking about a signal that's almost invisible by weight. Again, a microscopic signal pulled from a massive amount of tissue, and it still has outsized biological effects. Now let's connect that science to real life. BDNF responds to signals, and exercise is one of the most consistent signals we have. There's meta-analytic evidence that a single session of exercise increases peripheral BDNF on average, and that regular training can increase the magnitude of that response over time. Peripheral just means measured outside the brain, usually in the blood, which is how most human studies track it. One nuance that matters, especially for my science-minded listeners out there who like accuracy, when people measure BDNF in blood, serum values are often much higher than plasma. Serum is the fluid after blood clots. Plasma is the fluid when clotting is prevented, partly because BDNF is stored in platelets and can be released during clotting. Platelets are tiny blood compartments best known for clotting, and they can release stored proteins during sample processing. So, quote, exercises raises BDNF, end quote, is a real finding because it also matters how it was measured and what pool you're looking at. Now, I want to mention a term you might hear as you go deeper into this topic. TRKB, that's a capital T, is the main high affinity receptor for BDNF. A receptor is like a docking station on a cell. When a signal docks there, it triggers, my tongue isn't working today, it triggers internal changes. So BDNF is the message and TRKB is one of the main receivers. We'll go deeper into TRKB later. For now, that mental model is enough. So what do you actually do with this? Here's some practical activation with clean science and no overpromising. If you want to support BDNF signaling in a way that's evidence-based, the most consistent lever is aerobic exercise. Then layering that in a skill, consistency, and doing that over time. So aerobic just means sustained movement where your heart and lungs are doing steady work, like walking uphill, cycling, rowing, or jogging. There's research showing exercise training can increase resting peripheral BDNF, and aerobic focused programs tend to show that effect more reliably across studies. So here are 3 real-world examples that are simple, repeatable, and actually useful. Example number 1, a steady base. 20 to 40 minutes of moderate intensity cardio. Moderate intensity cardio means you can talk in full sentences, but you wouldn't want to sing. So try to refrain from getting your Justin Bieber on. Incline walk. Think treadmill, incline where your breathing is elevated but controlled. Jump in on a bike. Upright or recumbent, steady pace with a slight sweat. Maybe you jump on a rower, smooth strokes, not sprinting, just something super consistent. Or maybe going for a light jog, conversational pace. You can keep it going without feeling like you're redlining. This is going to be your consistency signal, and it supports the long game. Example number 2, the intensity signal. Intervals 1 to 2 times per week. 1 minute hard means your breathing is heavy and you can only speak in short phrases. You're pushing into a high effort zone. 1 to 2 minutes easy means you're deliberately breaking your breathing down. You can talk again. You feel like your heart rate is settling. Repeat that 6 to 10 rounds. This style of sessions tend to create a noticeable stimulus, and it lines up with the evidence that acute exercise can increase peripheral BDNF on average. Acute just means short term, the immediate response to a single session. Example number 3, skill plus sweat. So pick one movement you want to truly own and practice it while slightly fatigued but never sloppy. So jump rope patterns, for example, basic bounce, then alternating feet, then a simple 2-step rhythm. Kettlebell swings with crisp form, like really focus on form. That's going to mean your hips are driving the movement, ribs are down, and the bell floats. It's not yanked. Sled pushes with clean posture, torso strong, steady steps, no collapsing. And the technique, not text messages, but you can do that too. I'm joking. Technique focused on lifting where the goal is perfect reps, not your maximum reps. So the reason this matters is that BDNF is tied to plasticity, your brain's ability to strengthen connections through learning and repetition. Okay. So you want the body to adapt, but you also want the brain to learn. You might have noticed that my voice changed a little bit, and when I get into the science details, I do this thing where I typically change my voice, but just want to kind of give you guys heads up, like why did the tone change a little bit, but hey, yeah. So going back a little bit, you want the body to adapt, but you also want the brain to learn. Okay, so I want you to really lock in at this moment because this is going to be a huge teachable moment. I think you guys will love this. So we're going to talk about recovery anchors that keep that signal usable, because this is where a lot of people get confused. They assume if the training is solid, the result should always be climbing. But the body doesn't just respond to effort. It responds to the full environment that effort is happening inside of. Again, the full environment that effort is happening inside of. You can train hard and still stall if your system never really settles. And I don't mean that as motivation. I mean it as physiology. Physiology is just how the body functions in real time, nerves, hormones, muscles, and recovery systems doing what they do behind the scenes. Training is a stressor by design. Adaptation happens after, when the stressor is followed by recovery. So when sleep and stress are unstable, the training signal is still there, but the outcome can change because the background biology shifts. One way to think about this is anabolic versus catabolic direction across the day. Anabolic means your body is in build mode. Catabolic means your body is leaning more toward breakdown. Neither one is bad in isolation. The problem is when the week is mostly catabolic because the system never gets enough recovery to swing back. Sleep is one of the strongest anchors because it supports timing, and timing influences hormones, nervous system tone, and recovery capacity. There's so much evidence that even one night of sleep loss can reduce muscle protein synthesis after feeding, meaning the body becomes less efficient at rebuilding tissues in the short term. And sleep loss can also push the hormonal environment in a more catabolic direction. That's so important, guys. You gotta get your rest. So if you're training hard, but sleep is unstable, you can end up sending mixed signals. Work signal from training, stress signal from life. That's not enough rebuild signal afterward. So strength work still matters, but if your brain feels cooked, motivation is flat, or recovery feels stuck, the smarter move is usually not stacking more volume on top of that exhaustion. A smarter week often looks like lifting plus a modest dose of cardio plus recovery that you can treat like part of the plan. So that's episode 2. BDNF is a real biological signal connected to learning, mood, recovery, and adaptation. And the takeaway is simple in a practical way. Your body responds to repeatable inputs. You don't need perfect genetics. You need consistent signals. If any of these terms are new, check the key terms section after the episode. And listening back after you know the words usually makes science land differently. In episode 3, we're going to connect this to what people feel day to day, why stress can flatten progress even when the training looks perfect on paper, and how to think about recovery as part of gene expression, not as an afterthought. Remember, your biology listens. Live like it.